There is no mention of the word God in that constitution. There is no reference to any kind of a dharmic value system, which is the underpinning of our whole country, Bharatvarsha. Because dharma simply means to distinguish between what is right and what is wrong. And this is what propels all of us Hindus, because we live a dharmic life. So they said breakup of the various communities in this constituency. So they says Muslims 28.5%. Then they say it's one of the largest Muslim concentrations in Bombay, by the way.
Okay.
That particular constituency. How they all ended up so close to the atomic energy place, I do not know. But then they say Yadav 1%, Kurmi something, some Pahadi something, Maratha some 2%. So there are 54 communities that are listed all with 1 and 2%. And then there is one says Muslims 28%. So the state itself is saying Muslims are one group, whereas all you Hindus are 10,000 groups.
Namaste, ladies and gentlemen. I am Ojasvi Mishra and I welcome you to another episode of Sangam Talks. Today we will be discussing towards Hindu Rashtra. The rediscovery of the importance of community affairs, namely Hindutva, is focusing with Hindus being increasingly eager to articulate, advocate and agitate for Hindu concerns and interests. The recent Tirupati Laddu episode could be a harbinger of the future times. To discuss the same, we have our speaker today, Govt Desiraju ji, who is the Professor Emeritus in Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru. He was the President of the Indian International Union of Crystallography between 2011 and 2014. He has authored a book, Bharat, India 2.0 in 2022. I welcome you, sir, and I request you to give us a brief overview of what the viewers can expect from this talk today.
Thank you, Ojasvi. I'm happy to be here and speak to you on Sangam Talks on a topic that I believe is of wide interest in our country today, namely the question of Hindu Rashtra and where we are in this journey towards a Hindu Rashtra. The words Hindu and Rashtra need some explanation. Hindu originally means anybody who lived east of the Sindhu river. It is quite an old terminology, and the land that was east of the Sindhu was called Hindustan by the Persians. Now, the word Hindu as applied to a religion came somewhat later, in fact, rather recently, in fact. The British started using it, and even today, I am told that Muslims from the Indian subcontinent who visit Saudi Arabia are called Hindus. So, the word Hindu does not necessarily have a religious connotation. This is, I think I must make it clear at the very outset. The more accurate term for what many of us would consider Hindu is actually Sanatani. So Sanatana Dharma is the name of our religion. It is a religion, it is not a way of life. It can be a way of life in certain circumstances. But I must emphasize at the very outset that Sanatana Dharma, or if you want to call it Hinduism, is a religion. Now, what is Rashtra? Rashtra is a kind of a situation where the civilizational underpinning of a whole people expresses itself in the activities of the state. Rashtra is to be clearly distinguished from Rajya. Rajya means the actual act of governance, government, etc., etc. Notice that I and many others are asking for a Hindu Rashtra and not a Hindu Rajya. A Hindu Rajya, if it ever could exist, I don't believe it can exist because of the very nature of Sanatana Dharma. Hindu Rajya would be a theocracy. And I think the concept that is most far away from Sanatana Dharma is a theocracy. So it is a situation like you find in Islamic countries, like say Pakistan, where the religion comes directly in play in the acts of governance. Hindu Rashtra is more closely allied to the concept of Hindutva. And Hindutva simply means the feeling of being a Hindu, Hindu-ness. You know, what is it that we feel civilizationally? That is Hindutva, that is what is called Hindu Rashtra. So the state should be guided by Hindu Rashtra and should not become a Hindu Rajya. This is very important because in Hindu Rashtra, it is accommodative of people of all faiths. Hindu Rashtra does not include just Sanatanis. It includes everyone. Hindus, Muslims, Christians, the smaller religions, who live in this sacred land that we call Bharatvarsha. And anybody who lives here in this sacred land and broadly subscribes to the ideas of being Bharatiya would be a worthy inhabitant of a Hindu Rashtra. I'm a scientist, and one of the concepts we have in our scientific disciplines is to distinguish between simple and complex systems. I think people have heard these words, simple and complex system. In a complex system, you see, it is hard to define, but it is very easy to say what it does. So the moment definitions start becoming difficult, then you are entering the domain of a complex system. Now, our country is one of the best examples of a complex system. If you go to a country like France, that is a simple system, where they just have one ethnicity, one language, one kind of food, one kind of geography, the same history, all going on for 1,000 years. That is a simple nation state. Bharat is not like that. Very diverse, and yet there is an overall umbrella, a canopy of Hindutva. And it is to this extent that many people in this country, after our very unfortunate history for the last 1,000 years, about 700 under Muslim domination and about 250 years under the British domination, and I would say a very ambiguous 75 years, mostly under the domination of the Congress party, have reached a point where the ideas of being a Hindu have started emerging. And the people have realized, one simple way in which one can say people have realized is our elections. You know, we have these elections now and then, and in 2014, in the Lok Sabha election, we gave a firm verdict. In 2019, the verdict became even stronger. And I view these election results as a way in which people have expressed their desire for a more Hindu character for this country. Finally, we are 80% in this country. You cannot take this 80% and make it subservient to the 15% Muslims who live here. And I think this is a mistaken notion that we have been undertaking for many years unsuccessfully. And the election results keep telling us that in the 2024 election Lok Sabha, the BJP did not get such a good mandate as it did in 2019 because people were disappointed. They somehow felt that the moves towards Hindu Rashtra are not strong enough. Now, just today, and so that we can date this conversation, we have seen just today in the morning, we have seen the election result in Maharashtra. Now, this clearly shows a desire of the common people for a Hindu Rashtra. What happens in our country is not decided in the drawing rooms of Lutyens Delhi, the India International Center and the Habitat Center, where bureaucrats and politicians gather every evening and have their evening drinks. What happens in Bharat is not decided there. It is decided in small villages, in Darbhanga, near Trichur, near Velur, near Tarantaran, near New Bongaigaon. It is these places which are defining the agenda today. And these places in Maharashtra have spoken very loudly this morning, which means people do want this Hindu Rashtra. Once again, I'll come back to a complex system. In a complex system, it is very hard to define. So books like Why I Am a Hindu, or What It Is to Be a Hindu, Hinduism, a primer, I don't take any of these books very seriously, because it's very hard to define this word. It means different things to different people, but all of us know what it is to be a Hindu. There is no question about that. We know what it is, but we can't define it. And when that happens, be sure that you are dealing with a complex system. A complex system is very hard to define, but it is very easy to say what it will do. Like for instance, most Hindus, I would say, if not all, you actually must, but you will take off your shoes when you go into a temple or any place, even in the house. Near a puja room, you will not go there with shoes on. You will not wear your shoes when you go into the kitchen. Normally, I would say, again, this is another thing. It is not just a matter of cleanliness, because I have seen people all over the world. People once told me that India is defined as a country where the place where you eat is very close to the place where you wash your hands. And I think it's a good working definition of India, because most of us, before we eat, even if we eat with a spoon, feel like washing our hands before we start eating. This is something I can say from experience, having traveled in a large number of countries. This is something I find exclusively only in our own country. So it's very hard to define what makes a Hindu. It is some of these subtle things, but yet we all know, at least 80% of us know, that we are Hindus. And so it is this movement towards this Hindu Rashtra, and I hope that in this talk we cover a few points where we try to touch upon what people can do or people want to do. People will only do what they want to do. And more important and more significant is what the politicians should do, realizing that people want something or the other. Because finally, many concrete things that can happen towards Hindu Rashtra can only happen with the intervention of the politicians. So it is a matter where they don't decide what we want. But once, if they know what we want, they should start moving quickly towards that. Otherwise, they'll lose the next election. We have a very good weapon over the politicians in our form of elections and so on. So this is one good check on these people every 5 years. So I think these would be some of the broad ideas which I hope we are able to bring out in this conversation, Ojasvi.
So, while we, of course, talked about how a Hindu Rashtra would be accommodative of all its religions, but I think one thing I have been able to observe in fundamental nature of India today is that self-determination for other religious communities is something that is understood and accommodated more so than self-determination among Hindus. And oftentimes this term secularism is thrown at us. So while we talk about accommodation of other religions in an ideal utopia of Hindu Rashtra, what exactly would be the closest definition to secularism? And would there be existence of anything like secularism in a Hindu Rashtra?
Ojasvi, your question draws me straight away into the matter of the Constitution of India.
Yeah.
And there is no doubt that the Constitution as it stands at present strongly favors the minority religions. And let us also make the matter simple. Let us talk about the so-called largest minority, or what I call the second largest majority, namely Muslims. This is the crux of the matter. Please let us not obfuscate this issue by talking about Buddhists, Jains, Parsis, even Christians and so on and so on. We are talking about Muslims. We are talking about Hindus and Muslims. And the Constitution of India strongly favors the Muslim community as it stands today. Now, I don't even want to go into the reasons as to why this happened, the manner in which our Constitution was written, when it was written, and why it was written the way it was written, and why it was amended, especially in the first 10 years after 1950, are detailed adequately enough in my 2022 book that you were kind enough to refer to just now, Bharat India 2.0. And I think it's painful enough. I don't want to, comment too much about the people who wrote. Let me put it in brief. The people who wrote the Constitution were all staunch nationalists who were working under a severely limited time frame in the shadow of partition, and because of the fact that partition was not accompanied by a full transfer of population. Although Patel, Ambedkar and Rajaji were strongly for a full transfer of population, I think Nehru was not for it. And I think the Liaquat-Nehru Pact of 1950 was a colossal blunder. And the history of Pakistan itself shows what a sad story that became. I mean, today I'm told again, to be in the current news, that Mr. Imran Khan has called for a nationwide agitation tomorrow, and all the roads in Pakistan have been closed down simultaneously, and they've said that the army has said that it's being repaired. All the roads are being repaired on the same day. Yeah. So if you were to land in Lahore airport, you will have to just remain there for 72 hours because there is no way in which you can leave the airport and go outside. So, I mean, let us say that some of our fellows who went that side, this is the kind of country they have managed to create after 75 years. But coming back to your question, yes, this constitution is very lopsided, and it is not a constitution that is written for a nation, for a civilizational state. We have not recognized, at least our constituent assembly, and especially the first Prime Minister, refused to accept that we are a civilizational state. Yeah. We kept calling ourselves a nation state. In fact, the Constitution itself is based on a very archaic system, the Westminster system, of parliamentary elections and first past the post results. And if you read my Bharat book, you will realize that that kind of an election and that kind of a first past the post with the parliament being supreme only works when there is no written constitution. And there is only one country in the world that doesn't have a written constitution, and that is the United Kingdom. So, when the moment you have a written constitution and have that system, you get into a lot of problems, which is what really happened. Now, having said that, the next thing was that there is no mention of the word God in that constitution. Yes. There is no reference to any kind of a Dharmic value system, which is the underpinning of our whole country, Bharatvarsha. Because Dharma simply means to distinguish between what is right and what is wrong. And this is what propels all of us Hindus, because we live a Dharmic life. That is what our religion tells us. Again and again I will emphasize, ours is a religion, it's not a way of life. The way of life part comes in, as it does for all religions. Absolutely. All religions, that way is a way of life. But it is a religion. So please don't let any secular liberal tell you that the Lutyens people, that it's only a way of life. Because the moment you say it's a way of life, then Hinduism becomes like some cricket or some doing something else or going to a bank or anything is a way of life. Then the moment you say way of life, then they'll say, no, so then you're not a religion like Islam. So therefore you are not allowed those privileges that Muslims are allowed. So you see, this is a kind of a vicious circle, and our politicians have led us, I would say now of all political parties, have led us to a very status quo way of thinking, where we refuse to accept that Hindus are a big chunk of 80% of our people. Why do you think our politicians are so interested in dividing Hindus into Jaatis and sub-Jaatis?
Yeah.
The other day I saw a list of, I don't know which constituency it was, but it was one of these Maharashtra constituencies. I think it might have been Anushakti Nagar.
Okay.
And which is actually a very strategic area just outside our atomic energy park.
Okay.
The Anushakti Nagar is where BARC is located. So they said breakup of the various communities in this constituency. So they says Muslims 28.5%. Then they say it's one of the largest Muslim concentrations in Bombay, by the way.
Okay.
That particular constituency. How they all ended up so close to the atomic energy place, I do not know. But then they say Yadav 1%, Kurmi something, some Pahadi something, Maratha some 2%. So there are 54 communities that are listed all with 1 and 2%. And then there is one says Muslims 28%. So the state itself is saying Muslims are one group, whereas all you Hindus are 10,000 groups. So you have 10,000 gods, so we'll make you 10,000 groups. So what the British did, the state is doing today. That's what I mean when they say that it suits all political parties to keep the status quo going. And somehow feel that I don't really know today what is the fear of the political parties. Because they should realize, especially after today's Maharashtra result, that Hindus want a Hindu Rashtra. And they do not want this country to become an Islamic state, which is what will happen if people don't. And what has happened is that both the BJP and the Congress and the Samajwadi Party or anybody else, they've gotten onto this tiger. I call it secular tiger or reservations tiger or whatever it is. And you know what happens when you get onto the tiger? You can't get off. Because if you get off the tiger, tiger will eat you up. So they have to sit on the tiger and keep talking again and again. Baba Saheb ka Samvidhan. Baba Saheb ka Samvidhan.
Yeah.
That's all that they're all saying today. If we could only realize what a great man Baba Saheb was, and some of the things he has spoken about larger national issues, we would not be cheapening his name by saying Baba Saheb ka Samvidhan every second minute.
Yes.
So I think primary thing to answer your question is you must go back to the Constitution of India and start maybe in the beginning with amendments. But I feel that unless it is rewritten in a Dharmic way to reflect properly, say any constitution anywhere in the world, it reflects the nature of the people and the will of the people. If the will of the people is so far removed from what is written in that constitution, then that constitution has no meaning.
Absolutely.
And I think more people should start worrying about these points. This is not something for a big lawyer or some Supreme Court judge to sit and tell us about it. I should know what I want. If you ask a common man, say you go into the street and you're buying some fruits or something from a vendor, you should ask him, do you know what is the meaning of the word dharma? He will know. He can be completely illiterate. He will know the meaning of the word dharma. So if you ask me, simple one line, one word condensation of our constitution should be just dharma. The basic structure of which so much has been written and said and spoken after the Kesavananda Bharati judgment, that whole basic structure, if you ask me, is a pile of nonsense because it is not even defined.
Yes.
It is just what the judges of the day say it is. And one of the words it says is secular. Secular is another travesty.
Yes.
Because if you look at all the religions of the world, only Sanatan Dharma is secular. And the reason the famous Baba Saheb himself didn't want this secular word in the preamble is he said because Hinduism is secular by nature. But once the religion says that everybody can approach God in whatever way they see fit, once you are saying that, then where is the question of the state coming? And the other thing about secular, let me say, people cannot be secular, only state can be secular. This is what we have not realized. You know, when you start making these artificial things, this Ganga, Jamuna, Tehzeeb, I will go to Habitat Center and eat Lahori kebab. You know, this kind of thing is neither here nor there. Because we have to realize that we are all, as individuals, we could be Hindu, we could be Muslim, we could be Christian, we could be atheist, or we could be agnostic. All these things I respect. A state cannot be atheist, a state cannot be Muslim, a state cannot be Hindu. That would be Hindu Rajya, which I mentioned earlier. All that the state can do is, because we have failed in our definition of secularism, we have taken neither the secularism, in fact, is very peculiar to Christianity. It is not a characteristic of any other.
Yes.
And the word arose because of the conflict between church and state in Europe. Isn't it?
Yes.
So, if you take the French definition and the American definition, these are the two different ways in which secularism is practiced. In France, secularism is a device to prevent the state from being attacked by the church. Okay? That is the French definition. The state should be prevented from attack by the church. In America, it is exactly the opposite. The way they practice secularism is they say the church should not be attacked by the state. It's simple. That is the way, the only two ways in which I believe secularism can be practiced. Even if we want to have it, I believe the word secular should go away from the preamble. It doesn't belong there. I think the state in India should be strictly keeping away from religious matters, which means what? Articles 25,
26.
29, 30 must go in toto.
Yeah.
In toto. There should be not so much discussion about UCC and Waqf now. They are talking about doing something with the Waqf Act. Many Hindus want the Waqf Act itself to go. They fear actually that the BJP will do some half-hearted kich in that Waqf, and then it will be still a big mess for the Supreme Court to come in again and put its messy fingers all over the place. So I think UCC, Waqf, actually 25, 29 and 30 must go fully. There is no place for educational institutions for minority communities. In fact, I will make an even bigger question. The word minority should not be defined anymore.
Okay.
What does Article 14 tell you? It says every citizen of India is equal in the eyes of the law. Where is the question of minority? Whether I am atheist or whether I am Buddhist, Parsi, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, the state should treat me the same. It should be blind to my religion. Then why do we need a minority institution? Today we have a big controversy with this Aligarh Muslim University.
Yes.
And the latest constitutional bench has only confounded the issue further. It has still not told us whether AMU is a minority institution or not. It simply says something vague, that the very fact that an institution can be set up by a parliament or a legislature or some body does not mean that it is not a minority institution. That's all that it says. Typical of our Supreme Court. On the very last day of his term, the Chief Justice Chandrachud decided to give us this great pearl of wisdom. It adds nothing to the present situation. The 67 judgment was overturned, true. But now some other bench, maybe 50 years from now, will decide whether AMU is a minority institution or not. This is a big problem for us as someone coming from the university system and educational system. Because in the present scheme of things, Aligarh Muslim University is what is called a central university. In other words, it gets its fund directly from the central government. In this case, the University Grants Commission, UGC, and the Ministry of Education. So it is getting its money from there. Central universities are given a lot of money compared to state universities.
Okay.
State universities like Bangalore University or Madras University or whatever it is. So, no minority institution is a central university now. This is a fact. So, if they make Aligarh a minority institution, then would it lose its status as a central university? Then would it lose the funding? It's now getting about 1,000 crores a year. Not a small sum of money.
Yeah.
Also, if it's a minority institution, we all know very well that up to 50% of the seats are reserved for the minority. So there is no question of reservation for OBC, SC, ST, anything in Aligarh now.
Yeah.
But you have a central university which doesn't have these reservations. Why? Then you must remove it for everything. Why does Aligarh get a special privilege? And in the end, shall we say, that the state of Pakistan was imagined out of thin air in the campus of Aligarh Muslim University. Jinnah was a regular visitor there. How many of you know that the brother of our President Zakir Hussain was Vice Chancellor there from 48 to 56, Vice Chancellor of AMU. And he went to Pakistan after that and became a minister there. How many of you know that Zakir Hussain's brother became a minister in Pakistan? So the connection between AMU and Pakistan and Jinnah and the partition is very, very close. And it is today, I would say, less of a university and more of a center for Muslim intellectualism and Muslim politics in the country.
Yes.
Such a thing has no place in a Hindu Rashtra. That I am absolutely sure about it. Not a question of Rajya, Rashtra and all anymore. But a place like AMU, which is conceived in the way it is now moving, has no place. This I am very clear. Otherwise, they have to become like a regular university and do all the things that we are doing. Well, they do that, but it is clear that a person like Irfan Habib and all going on for so many years in a place like that, and the fact that the government of the day has not been able to do anything about it, I think these are all very serious questions. So when you say secular, I don't think we are always secular. So there is no question of, you don't need that word.
Yeah.
The present definition of secular, and I'll use the word Muslim appeasement.
Yes.
It has to go. It has to go. And I say that if the BJP does not do this properly, they will lose the next election. The Overton window is moving so fast that if they do not do these things properly and now quickly, they will lose the election. Because people are now fed up. They say we have given these guys 15 years.
Yeah.
And what have they done in this time period?
Sir, I think now would be an appropriate time to delve into the Tirupati Laddu issue. Now, from what I have understood is that often the final conclusion of the issue has been that it was an opportunistic political move by Chandrababu Naidu with regard to whatever the lab results and the Tamil dairy firm issue has been. Of course, that's still underway an investigation. But I think it indicates a larger issue. And the issue is that this would have never happened if it wasn't under government control in the first place. Whether you have Chandrababu Naidu or Jagan Mohan Reddy as the CM, I don't think that should affect if we get defiled laddus, which distributes about 300,000 laddus every day, making 500 crores every single day on those laddus, which are very integral to the entire parikrama of the temple. So I think the issue that Tirupati Laddu brings back is all about government control. I would like you to talk about that and give your insight on what one must take away from this particular investigation.
This is an important and topical issue that could be addressed at different levels. There is a political level, which you referred to. There is a constitutional level, and then there is a geopolitical level. Tirupati has been chosen very cleverly as a point of attack of Hindu Rashtra and Sanatana Dharma in general by the US deep state.
Okay.
I think the origins of this you have to trace, because instead of starting with Chandrababu Naidu and his deputy, Pawan Kalyan, I think.
Yes.
that is at the fag end of the issue. I mean, they have seen some political capital that can be made. And in the intermediate level, we have this issue of freeing temples. I will take these three topics, the international US deep state, the freeing of temples, and Chandrababu Naidu in a different order. I will start with this freeing of temples. Again, from Nehru's time, I think he was responsible for most of the ills, constitutional ills, that have plagued this country. Because to serve his short term, he was a very good politician, by the way.
Very good.
Excellent politician. Throughout his career, if you see, that is the one thing you have to note. He could see that allowing Muslims to do whatever they liked with their religious places, also armed with this Waqf Act, and at the same time keeping the temples under government control, further accentuated the favoritism shown to Muslims. Whatever I say about Muslims, let me say that at a much lesser level, it affects Christians also. But these have not been such a serious problem, except in some parts of southern India.
Yes.
It is not a nationwide problem with Christians all over India. That certainly it's not. But with Muslims it is. And Nehru saw in this keeping the temples under government control a way of telling Muslims how special they were. Okay? The other subsequently bigger reason to keep the temples under government control is that there were sources of unimaginable amounts of revenue.
Yeah.
The temple was more than a religious place in Bharat. A temple was the seat of culture, society, economics, interrelationships. In fact, it was the very ecosystem of the country. Temples originally all over India had huge tracts of land.
Yes.
They were self-sufficient economically. They provided a livelihood. The irrigation systems in all this land was carefully planned out. And at the same time, there were places where people could meet, gather, congregate, debate. And it was a place of social interaction. In the Abrahamic religions, the places of worship are strictly meant for worship. Is the very reason why in Sanatana Dharma, we don't have any particular rules on when to go to a temple. There may be a certain
Protocol.
not even protocol, I think just a kind of a emotional thing. We like to go to a Shiva temple on Monday.
Yeah.
Okay. We like to go to Balaji temple on Saturday. I mean, it is not written anywhere that you have to do this. Like Christians going to church on Sunday. There is nothing like that in our religion.
Correct.
But this doesn't mean we are an irreligious people. You can go there. You can, if the crowd is too much, you can come out quickly. Next day you go. There are many famous temples in South India where important music concerts are held there, in the temple precincts itself. This still goes on. I will mention the famous Kapalishwarar Kovil in the heart of Mylapore in Chennai,
Okay.
where some of the best music concerts were held in the temple itself. You can face the Murti and sing. And very prominent musicians come there and sing, and people come and listen. So it is a center for a lot of activity. It is in fact in many ways a microcosm of the Hindu Rashtra. And because economically they were important, it was so much livelihood and employment for so many people. Okay. So when you take this away and give it to the government, and the government says that we will adjudicate on secular matters. Now, what is a secular matter? Again, it's the falsehood of the word secular itself. So apparently, whether the temple opens at 9 o'clock or 9:30 in the morning is a secular matter. It is not clear to me if it is a secular matter. There may be some rituals or something in that temple that need to be done in a certain way. It could be that very difficult to draw the line between secular and non-secular. Like if you go to the Tirupati temple, many devotees decide to do tonsure of their hair.
Yes.
Now, is that particular activity secular or not secular? So you get into a very grey area at this point of time.
Yeah.
Now, given this particular thing, the fact that the government has taken over these temples, they took it over for the revenue. And because of the Muslim attacks and destruction of temples, you hardly find very, very rich temples in North India.
Yes.
There are a few, no doubt. Vaishno Devi or Kashi Vishwanath. Maybe there are a few. But compared to the wealth and money of the South Indian temples, which have not been destroyed, simply because the Muslims didn't have the energy to come so far.
Yeah.
Okay, so they've all stayed, and plus they were built with granite, which is very difficult to break.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
they were very big also. So it's quite difficult. I mean, if you see the Arunachaleswara temple in Tiruvannamalai, it will take many Muslims many months to break that temple down.
Yes.
Okay, it's not very easy, and they didn't even try. They probably came in that area, but they didn't try. So there is so much money associated with the temples in Tamil Nadu. And here when you talk about freeing temples, I must concentrate on Tamil Nadu. Because some of the worst excesses of government owning temples happens in that state. It is a money factor. There is too much money to be made in the temples.
Yes.
Today, Tamil Nadu government has even put cameras in the temple because it was commonly felt among devotees that money is not to be put in the hundis which goes to the government, but if it is put in the plate given by the Archaka, it goes to the Archaka. Now they are photographing that, and if he takes that money, they are coming and catching him.
Yeah.
You see, it has come to absurd levels. Now, the other day I found something even stranger, which tells you that, there is a quotation that whom the gods wish to destroy, they first make mad. Some famous person said this. I think it'll come to me who it was. This famous Kapalishwara Kovil, which I just mentioned.
Okay.
A rule was passed that pilgrims or anyone who is passing by that temple, there are 4 streets around that temple called Mada streets.
Okay.
So anybody who is passing in that area of those Mada streets is not allowed to say Shiva Shiva loudly.
Okay.
That's the rule. So if you say somebody came there and was saying Shiva Shiva, Shiva Shiva, as they commonly do in that place, a whole gang of police have come and tried to browbeat him physically. So, in the case of Tamil Nadu, attack of Sanatana Dharma, Udayanidhi Stalin, son of Stalin, has said, I want to destroy Sanatana Dharma. He is serious, by the way. One should not think that, it is said in jest or you can't take it seriously. So he was very serious about destroying Sanatana Dharma because this comes to the point of Soros and all. For them, India is one of the biggest threats in a geopolitical sense. Because they too realize what Yogi Adityanath has realized, that if the Hindus coalesce as one group, maybe 1 billion of us, a very large number, nobody can do anything to us at that point.
Yeah.
So how do you break this group? Okay? So the US deep state has till now been actively involved in the Break India forces. So who want to see this country split simply because they know that the Abrahamic faiths will not be able to fight properly against a huge civilizational state of 1 billion.
Yeah.
China troubled them in one way through manufacturing. We will trouble them through religion. And they realize in fact earlier than we realized the kind of power and danger we pose to them. Because a country that is united civilizationally will make rapid and exponential growth economically.
Yes.
Because the people will be moving as a united group. Instead of saying, I am Kurmi, you are Yadav, I am Congress, you are Samajwadi, he is Shiv Sena, Uddhav, I am Shiv Sena, XYZ. See, if the moment we stop saying that what we may say this, batoge to katoge, the moment we follow that thing, then it is difficult for the US or any other country to handle us.
Yes.
Which means the bureaucrats and the judges and everything of the American state. Trump poses a big danger to them, which is why they really did not want to see him become president, which I believe is one of the results, election results, which is going to have a big effect on us.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there are so many things we can talk about deep state. For example, it will signal the immediate collapse of Pakistan as a country itself.
Okay.
Because they are completely funded by the deep state. He has said, Trump has said a few months ago that I'm going to close down this deep state. Because they may be more powerful than the US government itself. So it's enormous. So they have realized that the way to attack Sanatana Dharma is to attack the religion itself. And what better place to attack than Tirupati temple?
Yeah.
Tirupati is a pan-India temple. Everybody knows Balaji. People from all over India and all over the world also visit that temple. And it is enormously wealthy, we know that also. And the fact that they had a chief minister in the form of Mr. Jagan, who was practically their agent for the American evangelical forces.
Yes.
I don't know if you have visited coastal Andhra.
Okay.
But since I have family there, I have visited fairly often in recent times. I am not exaggerating. You go on some of the main roads, every 500 meters to 1 kilometer, there is a huge, fancy, very big church. Very big. No, they are not small construction. So the question I'll ask is, where is the money to build all these churches coming from?
Yeah.
People have estimated that about 25% of the population in those areas have now been converted to Christianity, although they don't change their names. And one of the first things that, coming to the last point, Chandrababu Naidu, he said that only Hindus will be allowed to be doing government duty in the Tirupati temple.
Yeah.
Because till now many Christians were employed.
Yeah.
I think all this thing is wrong. So I think in the Tirupati Laddu itself, and notice the way the deep state has attacked. Beef is something that will unite all Hindus. Except a few people like Ramachandra Guha, every other Hindu will avoid beef.
Yes.
We may eat meat of various types, or some of us may consume eggs. But very, very, very few Hindus will actually eat beef. And if you remember at the time of forcible conversion, at the time of partition and all that, one of the first things that was done to these people who were converted forcibly was to force them to eat beef. So because that was breaking the last link with their original religion.
Yeah.
So I don't think you will find too many Hindus who will eat beef, or like Ramachandra Guha, take pride in the fact that they are eating beef. Very few. So well, as an individual, he is allowed to do whatever he wants. But probably in my definition, he would not be a Hindu even. Even in our loose definition of what is a Hindu, why am I a Hindu, why am I not a Hindu, what is Hindutva, I am a Hindu but I don't believe in Hindutva. Forget all those discussions. Beef comes above this. I don't think that you will find too many Hindus. So when they say beef tallow in that laddu, which is Tirupati laddu compared to all other prasads, is supposed to be a divine blessing from the God. The laddu is actually placed at the feet of the Lord and then sold. And it is supposed to be very special, and it is only allowed to be made by the Tirupati Tirumala Devasthana. It cannot be made by anybody. I will just say a little nostalgically and in a lighter vein that Tirupati laddu used to taste much better in former times.
Okay.
And of late, I'll say even more humorously, we have a small branch of the Tirupati Tirumala Devasthana not very far from where I live in Bengaluru. That is near the place called Vayali Kaval. There is a temple there of the TTD, and every Saturday morning he will sell the sanctified Tirupati Laddu. And there's quite a demand for it. And I will say, this is a personal comment, that over the last year or two, myself and my family members have felt that the quality of this Tirupati Laddu has really deteriorated. And at one point of time, I think it was my wife who said that it looks like little more than a yellow lump of maida.
Okay.
And at that point, we stopped actually buying that laddu.
Okay.
I am told recently by my son that after this crisis has blown, the quality of that laddu has suddenly gone up quite a bit.
Okay.
So I must say that at least this thing has had one good consequence in all this.
Yeah.
But you see, the way they attack and the way that particular laddu and that beef, it is a very, very accurate attack. It is something that is meant to hit at our very heart and soul, you know.
Yeah.
When you somehow feel Balaji laddu has been now contaminated, you feel then, you know, what use am I?
Yeah.
Really, you feel useless. And so it is a psychological war.
Yeah.
I will say the musical war today is also in the same genre. This giving of the Sangeeta Kalanidhi award to this person, T.M. Krishna, who is also part of this Tukde Tukde gang.
Correct.
George Soros, Magsaysay gang,
Yeah.
you know, Arvind Kejriwal gang, whatever gang you want to call. This whole gang that wants to see Hindu Rashtra not becoming a reality. It is now, you know, it is a whole inchoate, frustrated group today who will do anything, including burn the country, because they feel that they are getting thwarted. They are not scared of the BJP. They are scared of the Indian people. They are scared of the 80% Hindus who have woken up now. And I don't like this Hindu Rashtra or Hindutva and all being equated with the BJP, RSS and all.
Absolutely.
It has nothing to do with Modi, I say. Nothing. Because at the end of the day, the BJP in its present form is highly status quo. It will want to move cautiously, slowly, which they must actually, because they're in government.
Yeah.
They don't want to get into trouble tomorrow in parliament and, you know, some other thing happening. So they are political people. But they must be quick to sense what the people want. If after Maharashtra, they don't start cleaning up Mumbai city properly, then the public will take it out on the BJP. They must do what they said they would do. They have to start doing what Yogi ji is doing in Uttar Pradesh. Maybe bulldozer Raj, I don't know what. But something they have to do, because Hindus have to feel what you said earlier. Hindus have to feel that this is my country. Today we don't feel that.
Yes.
We feel it is a country only meant for Muslims. This is not good.
Yes.
Because anywhere in the world, the normal tendency would be that the minorities should be scared of the majority. I mean, it looks so silly and obvious.
Yeah.
But we've come to a state in this country where the majority is scared of the minority. I mean, what have we done to ourselves?
Yeah.
Why have we Hindus become so quiet? And here I would say Congress does it in one way, BJP does it in some other way.
Correct.
But they seem to be doing, even the BJP, the minimum required to win the next election, that's all. It is not being followed up with action. In fact, even with Ram Janambhoomi, although people may argue with me on this point, it should have been done automatically and not wait for a court verdict.
Yeah.
Oh, because the court said it, that's why we did it. And the court was very clear that it is a land dispute and not a religious dispute. No, I'm sorry, it is a religious dispute.
Absolutely.
Our land was taken away and some alien structure was put on it. It is for me very much a religious issue. And I don't feel very good that, it's a land dispute.
Yeah.
Some temple was there built below and we saw the thing, KK Muhammad, he got the evidence and then therefore there is something, Places of Worship Act. See, lot of legalese. I am afraid they are going into the same thing for Gyanvapi.
Okay.
If you have been to Banaras, you will see, yes you have, and you will see that Hindu carvings on one side of the mosque. Yogi ji has said, what is there to say? You can see it.
Yeah.
And once again we are going to the court. Only if the court says, then again Baba Sahib ka Samvidhan. So you see, this is a kind of a
Vicious
catch-22 situation that we've got ourselves into. So the Tirupati Laddu should be viewed as a very clever and very diabolical attack. It's like acupuncture on the place where it is going to affect maximum number of Hindus the most. And they have picked it. The American deep state has picked it with the help of XYZ, the evangelicals, Jagan, I don't care, Stalin, this whole gang who is being funded by the church. So it could be anybody among this group, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But this is how they did it. Now, question to be asked politically is, why did Naidu wait so long when he knew all the facts and suddenly declared? That could have been a political decision. But one of the things, positive things that has come out is a statement of Pawan Kalyan that a Hindu, I think the particular name that he has called is, he called something as a Varaha Declaration, and Sanatan Dharma Samrakshna Board. He suggests the formation of this, and let me read this please, because I think it is somewhat important.
Please, sir.
Sanatana Dharma Samrakshna Board, Andhra Pradesh's Deputy Chief Minister Pawan Kalyan has an important suggestion towards converting the various disparate entities into an organized, channelized movement. See, we Hindus are not very organized. We are an anarchic lot.
Yeah.
In fact, we have succeeded so long because we are anarchic. You know, we are not a very easily regimented people. So we love to show that we are different. A Sanatana Dharma board which can aggregately take up Hindu causes such as social media account suspensions, lawfare, Hindu economic rights, temple protection, etc. is necessary. Fine, this is very important. It ought to be noted that the All India Muslim Personal Law Board was neither set up by the government nor was endorsed by it. And yet it successfully manages to act as a custodian of Muslim rights across all fields. It's a purely private body, you know.
Yeah.
Thus, an equivalent body that can coordinate Hindu efforts will be an umbrella pressure group, and it needs to be set up, it has to be set up outside the government. This is an initiative that common Hindus should take. Our religious leaders, even concerned citizens. And it can and should be set up privately. And it must act as a sort of a channeling body to prevent 1 billion Hindus from speaking with 2 billion voices. You know, to prevent that kind of absurdity from happening. I think Pawan Kalyan's idea is actually very good.
Okay.
And I think it should be taken up on a war footing actually. Because then at least the government will feel pressure from a board like this. And I've mentioned Overton window before. Any good politician knows where the Overton window is. And when the Overton window shifts, the politician shifts.
Yeah.
You cannot expect, politician is not here to take an initiative on his own. He has got only one business, how to win the election after 5 years. So if he knows this is what people want, today Mr. Fadnavis or whoever was helping him in this election, they knew what the people want. The core Hindu voter of Maharashtra wants a Hindu Rashtra. Isn't it so obvious?
Yeah.
Forget all this other talk in these TV debates and this and that and this constituency and that constituency. So such a huge mandate. I think BJP at last count
81%.
has got 200 and the whole alliance has got 225 or something. BJP alone has got 120 or something, 123. And with close to the majority of 144. So BJP alone is close to the majority. So with such a huge mandate you get, and with Mr. Sharad Pawar getting 12 and Mr. Rahul Gandhi getting about 18. So it means most Hindus in Maharashtra want a Hindu Rashtra.
Yeah.
Face it. Now don't start saying Supreme Court. I think this is where I think the BJP goes wrong many times. And I think people will get impatient if they now do not start moving. Yes, I know the argument, counter argument, that the government is in possession of many facts and figures which we common public do not know, obviously. They are also aware of geopolitical realities. India is part of a very complex system of nations. I talked about India as a complex entity, but the whole group of, say, India, China, Russia, America itself is another complex beast with no friends and no enemies and everybody having their own interests. So in a situation like this, the government may not be able to do everything that people want them to do. Okay, we also should bear that in mind. But still, given that big benefit of doubt which I am giving to the government, they can still do a few things. I think repeal of the Places of Worship Act 1991, that is something that can be done oh so easily.
Yeah.
America is not going to worry if we repeal that act. America is not going to worry if we scrap the Waqf Act completely. So I think we also have to be a little realistic about this.
Okay.
And I think phase our future actions in the immediate future. It's no more a matter for the intermediate future and long term. It has to be done very quickly.
So just one point of clarification that I required was when you talked about how Chandrababu Naidu's statement about how non-Hindus shouldn't be a part of the temple management. So are you opposing it or are you supporting it? Do you think that statement is wrong?
No, I think his statement is right.
Okay.
Because it represents a movement of the state from Article 25, 29, 30. Because he's saying that even in a government-controlled temple, only people belonging to that denomination can serve in secular roles. The government had never taken religious roles to itself, even in these temples. So he's saying even for secular roles, only Hindus can serve.
So then the problem that comes up with that is that the recent Waqf Board amendment bill that has come in, it proposes that there should be 2 Muslim women who should be put in. Of course, that is a vote bank strategy for BJP because it's trying to appease the Muslim women. And the second thing that they've proposed is that there should be 2 non-Muslims in the Waqf Board now. So if
also coming in the same category of things.
So where do you stand on that?
Yes, these are very, very, very interesting things because it means that the BJP is well aware of ground realities and also aware of political realities. So it is like introducing the change so slowly that the people don't realize that the change is being introduced.
Yeah.
Because if you take 25, 29 and 30, anybody should be able to serve in the secular role. Now, they are saying that Waqf board, it's not very clear to me whether that is defined by government as a secular body or whether it is a religious body. And so the moment they are saying 2 Hindus can be there, then government is showing the real meaning of the word secular to Muslims. And in the case of Tirupati to Christians.
Yeah.
So, and the other way.
Yeah.
Here it is saying only, that means
Hindu.
it's saying that Christians and Muslims cannot serve on the Tirupati board.
Yeah.
And to bring up another point, it's even more significant along the same lines of argument, is the CAA.
Yeah.
Why is the CAA so important? And why did so many people in the Tukde gang oppose it? You may think on the one hand, on the face of it, CAA looks simple. It says that anybody who came from Afghanistan, Bangladesh and Pakistan on the basis of religious persecution will automatically get Indian citizenship if they came before 2014. There is a technical point there which I don't like. I don't think they should have put 2014. It should have been at any time.
Yeah.
When anybody comes of this category at any time, they should be given. And it is a bit like Israel's, right of return. That any Jewish person anywhere in the world, if he goes to Israel, becomes a natural citizen. Correct. Now, we have not gone quite that far, but we have said that religious persecution in these 3 countries. Now, why did Congress and Kejriwal and all these people protest so much? Why did Deep State put that agitation in Shaheen Bagh? It is not that finally the number of people affected here is in a few thousands. That is not the point. The point is very significant. The state, that is the Union of India, has said that there is a difference between Hindus and Muslims. Because many of the so-called tukdes have said, what about a Shia who is persecuted in Pakistan? Yesterday they have killed a lot of Shias in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa.
Now there's a protest in Jammu Kashmir for Shias.
I know many Shias in the Kashmir Valley who in private have complained to me about the hard times they are facing. Now, the state, it is not anybody else. The state has distinguished between a Hindu and a Muslim, and this is the first time. It is the first time that the state has said. That is why they are so upset. They are not upset about these few thousand people who came across. So when the state is saying it, then it becomes a very serious matter for Muslims. Because then they are questioning themselves as to whether all these things that good times they have been having so far, whether they are all going to come to an end. And the fact that, which is why people have mistakenly conflated this with NRC and all that. NRC is quite separate. It is a problem that concerns Assam, West Bengal, and in a lighter vein, large parts of Bangalore today. Okay. So it doesn't concern everybody all over India. But CAA is a fundamental thing because the state, the Union of India, has never before distinguished between Hindus and Muslims so sharply. And what is done is done. So now they know that they cannot take back CAA. So the BJP is aware of what it's doing and it is aware of the significance of that CAA. What I couldn't really understand from the outside, as I said, we don't know all the facts and figures, why it took them 4.5 years to notify it. Okay, in the middle, COVID came 2 years. But why they took so long to notify CAA, I don't know. And sometimes their long silences and inactivity puzzles me as an outsider. Because I often feel that they go wrong in their sense of timing. But then sometimes you see their successes like Maharashtra today. Or the 7 out of 9
in UP.
In UP, which I believe at a certain, my own humble take on the matter, is that 7 out of 9 in UP is far more significant than the Maharashtra win. Because they have struck into the heart of Samajwadi Party territory. Those were not any old constituencies. And the fact that they have been able to strike there, in the citadel of the enemy, as it were, who is votary of this caste equations and reservations and 15-4, 16-4, all these things. So that is, he is the high priest of all these things. So the fact that they have been able to attack in that place and that Batoge to Katoge has worked over there, that means this is a very powerful slogan. And I am sure, I mean, I am not a political poll analysis person, but I think we will see more of this slogan. And it all comes back to these points again.
I think another question that I would like to ask you from the discussion we were having before we started recording was the statement made by Himanta Biswa Sarma about how our identity as a civilization trumps our identity as people with ulterior motives, or even the idea of a nation state, as your book rightly talks about. What I want to ask is a two-part question. The first is for you to validate his statement. And the second is how he talks about Assam as an issue. And he says that the entire madrasa issue is something that he finds challenging himself to tackle. Whether it is the closing down of the madrasas or it is the influx of Muslim students into education that would require a scientific temperament. So I would like you to talk about these two questions.
I mean, for those of you who have read my book on Bharat India 2.0, several of my friends who have read the book, they called me and said, hey, Himanta Biswa is saying exactly what you said in your book. And I couldn't agree with him more because I've already said the same thing. And one thing I have learnt in science is that to achieve a certain amount of success, you have to be either the best or you have to be the first. Being the best is very difficult. That is meant for some very superior people. But any of us can be the first to say something.
Yeah.
And we Indians are a very fearful people. We don't like to say things first.
Yeah.
In that Bharat book, I have said that our constitution needs serious looking at because it is flawed at a very fundamental level.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, what, Bharat, India, that is, we the people of India, that is Bharat.
Yeah.
We, the Dharmic people of Bharat, that is India, is what should have started.
Yeah.
It is Bharat that is India, not India that is Bharat.
And could you reiterate that statement from the book about the nation state and the civilization?
Absolutely. I'm coming to that.
Okay.
See, a constitution, any constitution, anywhere in the world, from the times of Aristotle, it reflects the normal cultural, social, economic, existential aspirations of the people of that country. That is what distinguishes one country from another country. Otherwise, we could all be one country somewhere. Why do we have different countries, different constitutions? Each of us countries is different. So it should be reflective of what we are. Our constitution is not reflective of what we are. We are a Dharmic lot. We don't even believe in a rigorous boundary of our country.
Yes.
There's something called Bharatvarsha. If we say where it is, we'll say from the mountain to the ocean. What mountain, what ocean? And in any civilization, civilizational state, the civilization, as Himanta Biswa said, leads to the constitution. Civilization comes first, constitution comes next.
Yeah.
Constitution is what, Ojasvi? It is simply a template, it's a rule book of how you are going to carry out your day-to-day things.
Yeah.
And from Aristotle itself, it is acknowledged that constitutions go on getting changed. It is not a holy book. It is not Asmani Kitab. Okay? It is written by ordinary people like you and me. So he says, he says, civilization comes first, the nature of the people, it should lead to the constitution in a civilizational state.
Yeah.
On the other hand, a nation state, like the USA for example, the constitution is the origin, it starts.
Yeah.
And the people adjust their behavior according to the constitution. That is easy in a nation state.
Yeah.
Because in a nation state, they are all very homogeneous.
Yeah.
What was homogeneous about US? First thing they insist on any immigrant is that they should speak English. And basically they are told they have to forget their old European language.
Correct.
And within a generation or two they forget.
Yeah.
They don't speak the old language anymore. So they speak only English. They homogenize. That melting pot, no? We are not a melting pot. Can't be.
Can't be.
So in the nation state, you can say constitution, people's behavior comes from the constitution. That's what the Supreme Court is trying to tell us.
Yeah.
That's why it's wrong.
Yeah.
Because in a civilizational state, the people tell what the constitution should be. That is why I feel that writing any number of amendments, whereas it may be okay in the medium run, in the long run, by that I mean 10 to 15 years, we need nothing short of a new constitution and an end to Baba Saheb ka Samvidhan. I think
Correct.
time has come. There's a time limit for everything. Today even Gandhi is now, time limit is over. You can't go on quoting Gandhi's name.
Correct.
Nehru, Indira Gandhi, we've already forgotten them. Baba Saheb also will have to, all great people in their time. All very great people, because to manage a difficult country like India is not easy.
Correct.
Whether it was Nehru, whether it was Indira Gandhi, whether it was Morarji Desai, whether it was Vajpayee, I think all of them had a very difficult time managing this country. So, without any prejudice to any of our former leaders, let me say that each of these people have a time span, and Ambedkar also will have his time span. It has to be like that, because nothing stays static forever.
So in that very book, so you discuss about the concept of empires and how nation states will anyway evaporate over time.
Yes.
So how does the Hindu Rashtra find its relevance in your concept of empires?
Yes. It finds relevance through economics.
Okay.
For the first time in this conversation, we are touching the point of economics. The four empires, which we will describe in a book which is called Supply Chains,
Okay.
which is coming later in the next year, talks about the fact that the nation state concept itself is getting over. The 1815 Congress of Vienna and the redrawing of the map of Europe after World War I, and leading to the concept of nation state with sharp political boundaries. Nation state is characterized by sharp political boundaries. If you go to Vaga, you will see that here you are in India. If you put 1 foot forward, you are in Pakistan. There is a line.
Yeah.
Okay, there is a line. This side is India, that side is Pakistan. Now, in a civilizational domain, you don't have sharp boundaries. You have buffer zones. The whole of Afghanistan, Nepal, Thailand, even Myanmar, and they were all buffer zones between powerful empires like France, Britain, Russia, and all that. They were not meant to be separate countries or anything. They were supposed to be no man's land. So today, even if you go to northwest of India and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and all that, there are places in the upper reaches of old J&K, that is Gilgit, Baltistan, Chitral, Tajikistan, you know, where there are no sharp, there are people migrating. The people are migrated doing trade and all that for millennia. You can't say this is your country, this is your flag, this is your national anthem. The concept of nationhood even doesn't exist for those people. So in this kind of a blurry situation, this is where I feel like in the old days we had big empires with buffer states. We are going to have a China, an India, and a Russia. You know, the philosopher, politician, Alexander Dugin is a person who is worth reading because he calls all these civilizational states. Civilizational states need buffers between them. Mongolia is a buffer between Russia and China. Nepal is a buffer. Nepal and Tibet also are buffers between India and China. Tibet is, to my mind, not a part of China. It is a buffer region. It always was. And eventually it will move in that direction only. What was called East Turkestan, now Xinjiang. So those are all buffer states. And to take a leap of faith and imagination, Pakistan itself is a buffer state. It's not a real country in itself. And as we can see very rapidly today with the way, in fact, it may disintegrate also very soon. You may have 3 or 4 buffer regions like Baloch, Sindhu Desh and, you know, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, all those places. They will all be like little different things.
Correct.
A buffer between India and West Asia, which it always was. See, the old ideas, Iran is an old civilization. Pakistan is not civilization. It's not a civilizational state. It's not a nation state. Correct. It is actually nothing in that way. So I think when you take all these civilizational states, one of the things that characterizes them also as a scientist, I'll say, is we tend to rely a lot on instinct and intuitive thinking. We are not used to reductionism because we are all strangers to the Western way of reductionism, binary. Binary is something we don't like. I have been to Japan many times. Like in India, we don't like to say the word no, you know. We'll say maybe, we'll see, let's wait and see. We'll not say no. If you go to a Western country, he'll say no. I can't do this.
Correct.
So it is a matter of instinct, intuition, intuitive thinking, which is characteristic of this part of the world. And it again comes back to deep state. So what is the role of America with the 4 empires? Because it will be the only one which is different from the other 3 empires a little bit. So I think that is an interesting dynamics which will play itself out in the years to come. We don't have to wait very long. I think by 2035 we will see all these things playing out.
Okay. So my last 2 questions to you. The first one would be about the Sabrimala case. So when we talk about the Sabrimala case, oftentimes the people who have opposed the Supreme Court verdict have cited Article 25. They have said that Article 25 talks about proliferation of religion only subject to public order and health. And we have said that if we take the health aspect of that particular argument, it is pernicious to the health of women who are within the menstrual age. Now, when we do away with Article 25, where do we find in Constitution to legitimize what is the long-running rule in the Sabrimala temple?
Of course, it's being still debated in the courts. And I think the last word is not said. But I think the cure has to be more surgical and systemic. The government control of the temples itself should go.
Correct.
And then there should be no question anymore. He is a brahmachari. So whatever rules the temple wants to put for itself, why do you have to go behind health, wealth and all? This is the way it is. That's the way it is. There are so many other shrines of Guru Ayyappan where women go. This is the only one where they are not allowed to go, where he is in the form of a brahmachari. So I think if that's what the temple wants, that's what it wants. I think the solution has to be at a more drastic level. You're trying to look at Article 25. It's more like trying to get a legal sort of escape route.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to be very satisfying to anyone, because that will again be questioned. How do you define health? Bring a doctor. He should be a government doctor. I mean, I don't take it very serious.
So I think we've covered economics, we've covered social, we've covered cultural. But in terms of education, I would like to talk about how Eurasia thinks. And it is something that you've talked about, that it is one of your most beloved subjects to talk about. And you cite the example of Mendeleev when you talk about how the Eurasian form of thinking is extremely intuitive. So I want you to expand on that in terms of how intuitive thinking will be integral to the education that will be promulgated by the Hindu Rashtra.
Excellent question. In 30 seconds, I will simply explain what Mendeleev did. We have something, since I'm a chemist, it's a topic close to my heart. And those who are interested can listen to a full 1-hour talk on this topic that I have given to Sangam with Ojasvi, I think a couple of years ago. Now, there's something called periodic table which lists the elements according to their properties. And many chemists of Europe were trying to find these relationships and they were not successful. Mendeleev succeeded because he found out that what was the problem with the European analysis was the fact that there were elements that were out there but had not been discovered. So he found out those missing elements, and in a scheme of ordering these elements, which is called periodic table, he put some gaps. And once he put the gaps, the relationship between the remaining elements became very clear. And for those who are finding this a little tricky to understand, I would advise you to look at the Sangam talks, where I have described this in detail. Now, why I say this is intuitive thinking is that in the way of doing science, in the Western way, the reductionist way, is that you take the data and then you try to build a hypothesis out of it. What Mendeleev did was, he took as data things that didn't exist. The element had not been found, and he said, my scheme is correct and therefore that element will be found. No Western scientist thinks like this. Which is why I feel Mendeleev was already thinking like an Asian. Which is why Russia is such a strange and endearing country to us. Our fascination with Russia and Russia's fascination with India comes in part from this. I refer to Dugin. Dugin says the whole experiment that Russia did looking towards Europe from the time of Peter the Great was all wrong. He said Russia should have looked east and not west. And they would have saved themselves a lot of time and trouble. And they might not even have gone for communism, I believe, if they had just looked east. Because you find there is a lot in common, and something like what Mendeleev did, that is saying that my model is correct and therefore a data must be found that will fit this model. I mean, that looks absurd to a Western scientist. It is not absurd to Indians, Chinese and Japanese.
Absolutely.
So that is what I mean by intuitive thinking, and I think that's what this whole IKS, Indian Knowledge Systems, where I'm participating in a meeting next month in Ahmedabad on this topic. The whole IKS is based on this, that how can we use Indian cognitive methods to solve advanced problems. When Mendeleev solved his problem, the periodic table was problem number 1 in chemistry, 1860s. Problem number 1. So he solved it where no European chemist could solve it. Many were trying. Italians, Germans, English people, they were trying. They could not solve it. So it was only left to the genius of this man who said, aha, there's something that the element itself has not been found. That is why this scheme that the Europeans have put forward is not working. So this requires a total opposite way of thinking. And we should revel in our oppositeness.
Yeah.
Which is why, coming back to the deep state, people usually fear things they don't understand. They don't understand us and our way of thinking. So we should stress the Indianness, we should stress the Hindutva, we should stress the Hindu Rashtra, we should stress all the things that make us different from America. Only then we will be able to stand on our feet and exert ourselves really as one of the four empires. But this will come out in the book on supply chains, which will probably come out in the middle of next year.
Thank you very much, sir, for your valuable insights on Hindu Rashtra. It is, I think, the go-to video for everyone who needs to understand it from the ground up. Now, before I end, I would like to read out what exactly one can expect from sir's book, Bharat India 2.0. He says that the core issue in India, an unsuitable system of governance that does not optimally dovetail modernity and economic growth with our civilizational values, diversity and dharma. This system of governance laid out in the Constitution of India is the subject of this book, specifically how it should be modified to suit the present times. Ladies and gentlemen, India, that is Bharat, is not a nation state. It is a civilizational state. Our people will not align to what the Constitution says, but the Constitution must align to what our needs are. Thank you very much. I will see you in the next episode.
Thank you, Ojasvi. Thank you, everyone.